in the criminal justice arena, and he has, dismissed, as Daryl mentioned, I believe, two of the prosecutors in the state because they didn't do what he wanted them to do. They didn't have his, hard right, misguided, racist viewpoints, and instead they were working with communities, trying to make things better in communities, and in pursuing justice to the best of their abilities. But there's another story here that we want to bring up. We want to, once again, congratulate the Tampa Five. Thank you for all of your work, and we hope that you can now heal and get through this, but continue to be the wonderful activist you are. Now I want to bring up the second half of our show, where we're going to talk about what's going on with the Eighth Circuit Court of Appeals case again. This is that horrible case where the Eighth Circuit Court of Appeals, federal court, said that there is no private right of action in a voting rights case under Section 2, where, you basically say, well, somebody has discriminated against me on the basis of race in voting, and I wasn't able to exercise my voting rights, and that's illegal. And that this practice or policy will, in fact, hurt people of color or is hurting people of color, and it needs to stop. Well, they now have decided that you don't even have the right to even complain in the Eighth Circuit. The Eighth Circuit covers, a number of states: South Dakota, North Dakota, Arkansas, Missouri, Minnesota, and it's a real tragedy for Nebraska, for all those people in that circuit, because right now it's really up in the air. How do you enforce your voting rights? But there's something worse that hasn't been talked about, and we are on it, and that is there are 14 states where attorney generals, including outside of the states that I mentioned in the Eighth Circuit, filed amicus briefs saying this should be the law of the land, meaning that they want this to be the law in their own state. Have we been joined by Diane Wilkerson and by Adora Nweze?
Yes. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you.
Hi, Adora.
Hi.
Hi, thank you. I am so happy that Dr. Adora Nweze has joined us. She is the president of the state conference of the NAACP in Florida. You heard her. Yes, you have heard her on our show a number of times. She helped us in that mighty Stay Woke Florida protest. Yeah, we rolled throughout the state of Florida, visit some 15 cities where we raised all kinds of noise and got people activated and active to oppose all of this mean, evil, racist acts that are being done by the governor. And I also understand we've been joined by Diane Wilkerson, who is...
I'm here.
Hey, Diane, a former state senator from Massachusetts, one of the best voting rights advocates in our country, and she also serves on the board of the Transformative Justice Coalition as our mighty treasurer. So, ladies, we just had the amazing news. You might have heard that the Tampa Five, those young students who were protesting, the injustice of trying to ban diversity, equity, and inclusion programs at their university, were able today, they were able to have those charges where they were seeking 10 years, to put them in jail for 10 years. Those charges were dismissed today. Yes. And Daryl, you can explain it better because I don't want to, get because as a former prosecutor, you can explain what happened, but it's because of the people protest. The people saying you can't treat these children like this. You can't treat these young people, so viciously. You can't abuse them and then turn around and charge them after you let the police just, terrorize them. This is so critical. It's such good news, and we just wanted to really get into that, right, Daryl?
Absolutely, Barbara, and welcome both Dr. Nweze as well as Diane Wilkerson back to the show again, talking. And somehow we always end up in Florida, Dr. Nweze. I don't know how that happens.
Well, I know how it happens, and we all know how it happens, and we wish we could stop it. We're going to do our best.
Wow.
This will be our year.
Amen. And so what we wanted to start with is, as we know, this Eighth Circuit opinion has been wreaking havoc across the country, that in Louisiana people are now asking the Fifth Circuit to impose the rule that there is no private right of action to bring a case under Section 2 of the Voting Rights Act. This is a horrible, finding of the Eighth Circuit. It's only limited to those 7 states I mentioned. Yet Florida, your Attorney General, Ashley Moody, had the nerve to sign on to a brief, knowing that your state is 18% black, and and heavily Latino, and with no respect for the people, using your own monies, taxpayer monies from the folks, and saying that these people have no rights. Come on, Adora, you have been filing case after case against Florida. What do you think about this?
I tell you, we think a whole lot about it. If you will allow me, I'd like to just mention a couple of other things.
Please.
We have had this AG. She has portrayed Floridians on many issues, including the effort to repeal Obamacare, advocating showing rights for former felons whose litigation and legislation of it only was about recreation marijuana. She has opposed a woman's right to choose, and she supports the destruction of the voting rights agenda. And she wants to be governor of Florida. Can you believe that?
She wants to be governor. Oh, my God.
Yeah. We, as you can see, our pen is full. You can see why we're always in court. We really would love to be there, personally, me, every morning when the doors open. That's how badly we
got you.
When this piece happened to our students, we fought that, and that is why we challenged the anti-protest law. Every time something happens, the NAACP has to get out front to make sure that that question doesn't come again without a fight. And so we've been doing this with the Attorney General, trying to get her to do what she needs to do, and she could care less. So now she's trying to be a governor, and we've got to get out and vote, and we want everybody to know that we will be pushing, and we are pushing and have been pushing voting rights, and there's just no joke about it. Everybody needs to vote. Those who are not registered, they must be registered. The NAACP and all the other groups, both black and white and all races who support our side of registering to vote, are doing that. So we're in the street and we're making it happen. But we're going to do all we can to cut this out and to cut those people out who are not supporting us. And the Attorney General is one of them.
And I want people to know, Diane, just think about this. The Florida NAACP sued because the state of Florida, at the urging of their governor, DeSantis, passed some ugly anti-voting rights legislation, and they took them to court this year, and they got an injunction, which meant, folks, that they stopped it. They stopped some of these evil practices that were making it hard for people to be able to vote and for groups to register voters. It was just evil, just nothing but evil. But, Diane, when you hear this, what do you think?
I think, thank God for NAACP, for one. And second, that we actually we're going to be fighting evil all over the South, and I would say some of the Midwest, Northeast, and West Coast too for the next 12 months for sure. And we just need to get ready. And you're right, it does seem that Florida is at the top of our list, but they're not the only one. And I was so prepared to talk about the Tampa Five. You don't know how it does my heart to know that's one point now we can cross off our list, because we don't cross off any.
Amen. And, Daryl, young people, when we are listening to, these wonderful fighters today, these justice warriors who have won this case, where they're now not going to be under this threat of prosecution, under this threat of imprisonment, all this nonsense. When we were listening to them, it made me think about the mission and the work of TJC, because we live for the activation of young people. We live to make sure that their voting rights are secure. We live to make sure that their voices are heard. Daryl, in this moment, when you heard those young fighters standing up against injustice, what did you think, Daryl?
Thank you, Barbara. And listening to the young fighters that were standing up, we're certainly very proud of them. It was very bold. It took a lot of guts. And, it took a lot of commitment for them to be willing to go through what they've gone through. Now, one of the things that I think is really interesting, and one of the things that, we teach at TJC, at the Transformative Justice Coalition at our trainings, is that it also demonstrated the importance of down-ballot voting. Because you got to remember, it was the prosecutors that decided to bring charges against these Tampa Five. Well, the prosecutor is elected, and the prosecutor has to go before a judge, and that judge is elected. So if you have a prosecutor that is saying that I will not prosecute unjust laws, I will not enforce laws that are not justified, then you wouldn't have the situation initially of the Tampa Five being charged with anything. It begins to show, and it clearly shows, why it's so important to vote for prosecutors that are in harmony with your vision of what the community should look like, judges that are in harmony with what you believe justice should look like. We have those opportunities, and that's one of the things that we're pushing on those Tampa Five, and it's important that we do that. And Barbara, as Dr. Nweze was talking about Florida, and Diane was talking about the spread of this Eighth Circuit decision, saying that private citizens wouldn't have a right to go to the court on their own for redress to correct things that have been done wrong to them. How do you get any more basic than that? That's where we're coming from all of this. We've got to be certain that all of our rights are protected. What that prosecutor did down in Tampa was wrong, and it needs to be addressed. And what the Eighth Circuit did is wrong, and it needs to be addressed. That's where our focus has got to be. Am I wrong on this, Diane? No. Am I wrong on this, Dr. Nweze?
No, not at all. As a matter of fact,
not at all.
You have to really watch. You're talking about watching. That's why we had to challenge the anti-protest law in HB1. You see, because it comes back to you in all sorts of colors and numbers. Yes. Careful of it. Yes.
Absolutely. Well, you got a governor that defies the Constitution. Go ahead, Diane. I'm sorry.
I just wanted to say, Daryl, I think you said that this is why it's so important that we vote in choosing our, the prosecutors, who are going to prosecute the case. The thing about Florida that struck me about this Tampa is that it seemed that every law enforcement level was involved in this nonsense.
Yes.
So the Attorney General weighed in. It was amazing, because one of the things that I think we're dealing with now is that there is no more pretend. They've ripped the Band-Aid off. People, it's like watching somebody rob a bank. They know.
And when we come back, we will talk about this some more. We're going to talk about what we got to do right now in this moment, people. Don't you dare touch that dial. You know what time it is. It's called Igniting Change time. We'll be right back.
1450 WOL AM, where information is power.
Good afternoon. This WOL Traffic Update is sponsored by